so do. I'm flat, I'm not sharpened. It's not the best life. Australia was closed, Canada was closed, the USA. So here we came, and it was a bad old days. But we stayed, we came playing South American, French, Spanish, Mexican, Brazilian music and altiplano music, with the kenai, rondador, zampoñas, charango. And here I came into contact with African music. It wasn't the first time. Brazil was my first contact with Africa. I didn't know it at the time. And yeah, I came for a year, and I haven't left. I'm married to a South African. I have two children when I grown up, 44 and 33. And yeah, and I'm happy we came here because I got in touch, I got exposed to these amazing musical traditions that are here. I'm working with traditional musicians like Amadosini. Adosini, with whom I worked over many years and helped. I was never her agent, and she she herself said that when people say, "Oh, is he your agent?" A white agent, that kind of syndrome. She would say, "No, no, no. He's just a very good friend and a musician. We play together. He plays the ilongo." Ilongo. Um chingo in isiZulu. Lechodilo in Sesotho. Mogorenyana in Setswana. Every South African language has a name for it. The harmonic flute. By now I should be able to cut it exactly after 40 years of practice, but still not. Let's see. I happen to have a very good teacher by the name of Andrew Tracy, my guru, who really showed me the way to approach these and instructed me in the playing of lots of African instruments, from the Amadinla from Uganda, all the way down to South Africa, going past the Mbira in Zimbabwe, the Kalimba, the Nyangapan pipes from Mozambique, the Matepe Zamondoro, Mbira type of instrument. Eventually learning to play that flute that I play, the harmonic flute. And soon after the steel band, which is where I learned all those things, including the steel drum, which I've forgotten how to play, I went into education because I felt there was a need for all that amazing information that he gave me and the information in the Journal of African Music journal to be disseminated and to be activated and given to teachers and reanimated, really. They put the finger there and then they went like this. that flute that I play is, I say that too often, but it's the first instrument that really gave a very specific scale, an inescapable scale. When you have a piece of pipe, no holes on the side, and you blow it and make harmonics out of it, you're always going to get the same scale, which is a Lydian scale with an augmented fourth, the F sharp from the C, which is the mark of the Lydian, and then chromatic after the A. So jazz was there right from the start. The Lydian and the Mixolydian. And when the bows came, the musical bows came much later, being quite fancy in production, manufacture. They played the same music, the same scales. They could have chosen different intervals, but that's what they played, because that scale was there, right there, and it's still there. When they hear that scale, people go into some kind of a trance. I love it. Kind of, first, the fact that that piece of seaweed, which is what I use normally, can play all that music. I mean, that in itself is the first magical element of the instrument. But then the scale is very special, and I think it really brings something, some resonation, some genetic memory, I suppose. So that's where I am, and I've developed various systems. I was lucky to be the music writer for Oxford University Press, so the books that are in foundation and intermediate phase. So I was able to have an influence in that, in what the kids are learning, and the approach to music, and bringing in traditional instruments, but also expanding them, expanding them into learning the rudiments of music, using chord sequences, understanding chords, but always starting with making the music. That is the point of my programs and what I do in my workshops and what I put in that book. So it's and I've done this all over the world. I'm 72 now, so I've been everywhere. Australia, just Perth, in terms of work. I haven't worked in the East much, but otherwise everywhere. The Seychelles, Germany, the Clan Cosmos Festival, where we were there with Madosini. Walmart festivals where I do the one person, one note. Each person in the audience gets one little pipe, making one sound, one note. And we improvise the music first, because that's another thing, that's those early instruments. I went far into the instruments. Obviously, the examples of the instruments that I played still today in South Africa, the pipe ensembles and the flute, was inspirational. But I quickly realized that those instruments came from the very beginning of music, from the very beginning of humans making music, which was very likely at the same time they started painting rock paintings and dancing and telling stories and about the past and about the future. And, you know, when the imagination flourished, music was there, I'm pretty sure. And then, so in that way, it's an easy way to escape the accusations of appropriation. Because I'm not appropriating anything that is not human. This is a human right. Those instruments belong to everybody because we all come from the same people. From those people who were making music on the beach down here 60,000 years ago. Traditional music all over the world traditionally is not highly regarded. The practitioners are not very successful, they don't make much money out of it. So the young generation doesn't really regard them very highly at all. They go for the things that work, like digital music and rap and amapiano and things where there's a strong image and strong income, a lot of status. Traditional music in South Africa similarly is very downbeaten. The practitioners are not supported. They are not brought into schools to teach the new generation. So I saw it really as my job to change that. Music is made for sharing. If you play an instrument, if I play that flute, I want people I meet to play it because it gives me enormous, indescribable pleasure to play that instrument. And to play that instrument with Busim Plongo, I put a record on and I play along with it. Or Maslatini and the Mahotela Queens, I play with them posthumously. I played live with Madosini. So that is what music is supposed to be. You're supposed to share it, you're supposed to enjoy it, you're supposed to be happy when other people pick it up and play it. To say, wow, wonderful, I've shared this. It's not mine. It was created by our ancestors 60,000 years ago. But politics get into it. And they start saying, oh no, this belongs to us. This is not a white musical instrument. You learned it here, so it belongs to us, and you probably should not be playing it. Or certainly should not be making some money out of it. And even if you teach it, it's not enough. And I've taught. When I picked up that pipe, no one knew about that flute. There were examples in the Percival Kirby Museum collection that I was looking after. No one knew how to play that thing until some guy from the township came and he was playing a white electrical conduit. And he didn't teach me, but it taught me because I saw how he was doing it, and then I spent the whole day trying to get a sound when he left. So that's what they call cultural appropriation, because they say, oh, you come to South Africa and you take this knowledge, this musical knowledge, and you take it away, from us, and you are better connected because you are white and you are Spanish and you have computers, and so you are more likely to make a living out of this and to exploit this than black South Africans. Hence, you should not do that.
But there is such a thing as exploitation of culture.
There is, absolutely there is. And But my argument is that that's not Black South African culture. It's not African culture. It's human culture. Because that's really where it came up. So they learned from their ancestors, our ancestors. That pipe is played in, the harmonic flute is played in Finland, in Norway. How it got there, no one knows. Possibly because people from Africa, after having created an instrument, traveled, because they did. That's how the world was populated. Or maybe spontaneous generation, because when you are a traditional musician or shepherd and you want to make music, there's a limited number of instruments that you can come up with. One is the harmonic series, applied to the pipe, which they make out of the bark of the willow tree there in spring, or applied to the stone drum, the Jew's harp, which is made out of millet stalks here, or bamboo in the east, or metal in Germany, and these days. Sometimes it has one tone, only one fundamental, dong, ding, ding, dong, dong, ding, ding. Sometimes it has three, and it plays concertos. I told you about that guy. That's Austrian concerto writer. Austrian concerto writer who wrote for a three-tongued Jew's harp in the Alps when he was stuck in the snow one day. Anyway, so cultural appropriation is something that you can, kind of bring up when it's done rashly, when a lot of money is created out of it and not shared, when it is kept for yourself and not taught to other people. If those conditions are not there, then I can understand. But I certainly not a wealthy musician, and my job is teaching, and I've taught everybody I've met about the instrument, including these who flying kids. Including these who flying kids, who's made a lot of money out of it. He told me himself. That doesn't matter. No, what matters is that this is communicated and people are enabled to play that instrument. And that's my job. Johnny Clegg, if he was playing today, would probably get a lot of flack for doing what he did. But when he did that, first he did it properly. He immersed himself. He learned the language backwards. He learned to dance the different styles. He went into the townships, to learn to play when it was completely forbidden, So, and then, of course, then he made a career out of it. And he put that music on the map. Paul Simon came and he was accused of cultural appropriation as well. But he put quite a few bands and musicians through that Graceland record on the map. So they were able to go out. So he brought in, the Sitata Mia, he brought in a bass player, a guitar player, Piri, and then he brought his own words on these South African styles, but he did it really well. So I think whatever you do these days, more and more, you're going to get some flack, and you're going to get sidelined because you should not be doing that. But at my age of 72, I really don't care. I am, I don't care. Madosini and I had a very, very special relationship. We didn't speak each other's language, but we were best of friends, and we played together, and our instruments talked to each other. Our instruments understood each other, and my instrument was older than hers by probably quite a few hundred years. But we were together.
Pedro, you could have made a career as a rich, wealthy musician, as a teacher, teaching somewhere in, I don't know, in those white suburbs of Cape Town, teaching rich white children. But we are now sitting here at a township where you teach children who struggle to get enough food.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Look, I don't actually know if I had the choice, or if it was a conscious choice. I'm not good at pushing myself or at fundraising, and yeah, somehow it just this is how it turned out. You know, the xylophone, that program which I do these days, teacher training, it happens for disadvantaged schools. It doesn't happen in advantaged schools. First, because they don't need it. Secondly, because they're following the traditional Western musical approach, which we know how it goes. And they have all the instruments that they can possibly want. Marimba ensembles and steel drum ensembles, piano lessons, violin. So the urgent thing was and remains basically giving people like those kids the chance to the possibilities, the chance to hear the things, these different instruments, the chance to see a 72-year-old white man telling them a story about a crocodile who has a sore tooth and singing with him and making sound pictures with him, because that's what he does. That's something that I hope changes their lives and helps, together with the food scheme and the amazing education they get here, to do that.
Are you ready? Close your eyes. What did you see? What did you see? A bird? An owl? Yeah. It sounded like an owl, but you know what? If I ask each one of you to draw the picture of the owl you saw, they're all going to be different pictures. Yeah, because you made it up the owl inside your imagination. And that's what's amazing about sound. It makes you creative. You create your own pictures.
And then I started making up my own stories, because I saw stories as a teaching method, as a way to convey information about those instruments and about the music in the most amenable way for the children. And of course I use that participation in terms of sound pictures and in terms of the song that keeps coming back, call and response. But it was just a tool. And I take liberties with those stories from Zimbabwe. I take liberties with them, because my reasoning is that Hugh Tracy recorded that story in a village in Zimbabwe from an old man in his house. The old man, the neighbors, also an old man, told the same story, I'm pretty sure, but different in his own way, in his own style of telling, and even changing some of the things, because he knows about trees and about what sap is bad for you or not, so he put that into the story. And that's what I do. I brought in some pictures into the stories. They're not normally there. That's something I added. I changed the endings. When the ending, that story of the hyena and the little girl, it ends very badly for the hyena. The hyena dies with a hot poker being put by the granny from ear to ear, you know. And that's the end of that story. And the hyena, it was too violent for me, so I changed it. I got the hyena to survive. The granny cuts a branch of a bush, you know, it's very itchy. The leaves really make, and puts it under the hyena's nose while she's asleep, and the hyena runs away.
That's what happened to the crocodile. You woke up in the morning with a very sore tooth. Ow! Ow, 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 ow. My tooth is sore, said crocodile. He was so sore. He was so sore. He was singing a song that went like this. It went, ow, ow, ow. Ow, ow, ow. Ow, ow, ow. Got a crocodile. Everybody. Ow, ow, ow. Ow, ow, ow. Ow, ow, ow. Got a crocodile.
Look, I think from times immemorial, from the word go, I'm pretty sure that the stories that were told in the cave involved animals, involved night sounds in the night, worrying sounds, involved training in safety through stories. Safety is regards to animals, how to behave with animals, or which animals, also education, which animals were edible or easy to catch, which were poisonous, etc., which ones would put up a fight. Storytelling would have been the first teaching method, well, second, after imitation, but pretty much very early teaching method, way of teaching. So Aesop's tales and the stories that Madosini told, all stories about the hyena and the dove and the rabbit, Mvundla, the trickster, the also trickster, Mvundla. They always involved animals, and they were mostly anthropomorphized. They had the characteristics of the animal, or how the animal looked, you know, devious as a hyena, you know, things were put onto the animals. Human faults and good things like being creative, like the rabbit, were put onto animals, and they were kind of stereotyped. It's an interesting question, and I must think about it, because sometimes you get, you know, usually the stories have a human involved, often, and the human will interact with the animals, ask for advice. Sometimes the animal will learn a skill, like the hyena in that story from Zimbabwe, the girl and the hyena. The hyena learns to sing, to imitate the granny's voice, so that the little girl inside the cave opens the door and she can get to the little girl. And she tries different times, different things, and eventually she gets that voice that's like the granny. So there's such a variety of relationships with animals. The story of the rabbit, the little girl hunting a rabbit. The rabbit acts in self-defense and says, no, don't shoot me, I'll walk with you, and you can cook me when we get home. But meanwhile, let's play some music because it's far. And the girl says, I don't like music. That's how it starts. I'm a hunter. And then the rabbit says, well, that's very weird. But anyway, I'll teach you something my mother taught me. That bow, you tie a calabash to it, the one was just eaten because they were hungry. and then you play with your arrow. There you go, there's your instrument. And that's how that instrument is introduced in the story, which is how it happened. The hunting bow came first, because that's essential. People have to eat. Then, as the arrow left, doing, ooh, music came in. After eating, you celebrate, you rest your bow on a calabash of a bitter melon that you were just eating for water in the Kalahari. And then you play, you know, it's over here. You must look at that video, bitter melons. The mole man plays and he stops the string like this, ta-dun, 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 with his chin. Amazing. And it resonator is a bitter melon shell. So yeah, that's how I introduced the instrument, you know, and it's the bow, the hunting bow. When I bring up the hunting bow and the arrow, I have everybody's attention. they're all looking at me. What is he gonna do? You know what I mean? It's attractive. You know, it's like it's a magnet. And then, you know, within the story, they take part and they sing. They sing and they make sound pictures. When the girl goes into the forest is full of birds. There are frogs, there are cows and goats. There's even a horse sometimes. And at the end, sometimes the string breaks. It's happened to me a few times. Tong! And I said, well, that's the end of that story. and that's how that little girl became a vegetarian. You know, humor, you need humor. You know, stories need to be fun. And they need to be fun for the audience, for the parents as well. There's quite a lot of stuff in my stories that goes to the audience, which goes over the kids, but the kids are there anyway. So yeah, that's all I can say about stories. Why it is all about these animals? Because we struggle to understand them, because it's really good to project the faults, the human faults onto animals. So it's kind of, here, take it. Greedy, sly, hyena, etc. Maybe there's some of that.